Okay, gang, here we go. I'm going to throw it over to Mahima Kakani, who is our moderator for this panel about the future of FinTech.
Thank you so much, Joanne, and thanks everyone for attending this year's SheTek conference. My name is Mahima Kakani, and like Joanne mentioned, I'll be helping moderate the panel. We have an esteemed group of panelists here today to share their insights on a variety of topics. So thank you to Dixiana, Ram, and Alexandra for joining us. And before we jump into the discussion, I'd just like to remind the audience that you can ask our panelists questions by entering them into the Zoom Q&A box, and we'll do our best to have them answered live. And we'll also save a few minutes at the end of our conversation for additional audience Q&A. So with that being said, let's get into the discussion. So just to start off, can you share a little bit about yourself with us, as well as how you got started in the FinTech space? Go ahead, Dixiana.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here today. I am currently the Chief Operating Officer at Metropolitan Commercial Bank. I've been involved in financial services for over 25 years now. It's so hard to say that sometimes. And as part of my duties as Chief Operating Officer and my involvement in financial services has always been in operations. And with operations, obviously, technology is a key component. I've seen the evolution of the FinTech space over my 25-year career, and its evolution today and its relevance to financial services is a key reason that I'm here today to talk to everyone. So I'm excited to start this conversation.
So let me go next, right, Mahima? Okay, my name is Ram Nagappan, and I am the Chief Information Officer for BNYMellon. I don't want to date myself, but it's 35 plus years in FinTech. So, you know, you could actually guess whether I love FinTech or not. Meaning, I started as a semiconductor engineer. That's how I started, designing semiconductor chip and video games. And if you have ever played Pong game in your home computer, so you are just talking to the author of the Pong game. That's how I started my career. But it was video game in those days. Nobody cared. And I wanted to come and work for Wall Street. For some reason, I'm in India. I'm studying engineering in India. I got fascinated by Wall Street. And hence I came to Wall Street. That's how my career started. 35 plus years in Wall Street. Been there, built everything that, built so many stock exchanges, so many trading systems, built the first online trading, like you could just right now go in and buy stocks and bonds and all of those. That was the first thing we built during the internet age. So it was a great thing. So excited to talk to all of you, and just shoot your questions. Whatever we can, we'll be able to answer. So thanks to SheTek for having me here also.
Thank you. I can go next. My name is Alexandra Scheibe. I'm co-head of the FinTech and blockchain practice at MecDermott. I'm a financial institutions lawyer by background. I've been representing commercial banks and investment banks and other financial entities on their derivative, structured finance, and FinTech transactions for over 20 years now. I hate to say it that way, but everybody else did, so I'm going to do it. And one thing that's been a great part about my career is continuing to represent corporates and financial institutions in this space as it's evolved. And so I'm really interested to answer your questions and talk about the evolution of the practice and how one might get involved in FinTech and crypto, and how to think about it from a career perspective. So thank you very much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Thanks everyone for your background. Lots to learn here today. So maybe with the first question, how have you seen the role of technology evolve in your respective roles over the last 2 to 3 years, or maybe even longer? Maybe we can start off with Dixie.
Well, in financial services, historically, there's always been the big three processors for banking primarily. it was the most banks' belief that the big three processors are all-in-one solution, and it's just easier to go that route. Those big three processors were driving essentially the customer experience, the operational experience, the product set, the product line. It wasn't the customers or the banks necessarily driving that. It was those big three processors. So over the past 5 to 10 years, where you've seen really fintech step into the marketplace, it's because customers are driving and saying, no, this experience is no longer acceptable. I'm not going to take, 30 minutes and have to come into a branch and open up an account. I want a different customer experience. I want it to be efficient. I want it to be convenient. I want a different product set that meets my needs. If I want to do instant payments now, or if I want to just have a checking account that caters to one transaction type, that is what I want. So I think that customer drive has really brought in a lot of the fintechs into the financial market space. And then I think banks have started to learn, those customers are actually quite important to us, and they do have a say in what their experience is. So you've seen this evolution from letting these big three providers drive the customer user product experience, to now we're evolving to seeing a best of breed and solutions, understanding what our customer base is, because every customer base for every bank is unique, and finding those fintechs that meet the needs of those niche markets. So I think you've seen a huge evolution there, and a huge acceptance from the financial companies of realizing that they can't just disregard the integration of those fintechs into their ecosystem. They have to actually bring them along, because there is a benefit to doing so.
Ram or Alexandra, feel free to chime in as well.
So let me go. I want you to just look around yourself. What has happened to you in your daily life in terms of technology? It's just mind-boggling that you've been thrown so much technology around you. So what has happened? Exponential growth in technology. And the reason for it, people can say it's globalization and amount of information and innovation that's happening. So what has happened is the technology has exponentially grown in its capability, probably 20x or 30x. And every industry, including finance, is trying to take this technology and applying it for their own good, for their own growth, efficiency, and operation. That's what is happening. Now, it's just not happening in the US, it's happening globally. And the other key pointer you have to think, we are at the juncture that 4 to 5 generation or experience at technology so much that people even forgot that there was a floppy disk in the same generation, and nobody even know what that is, right? So look, there's video. Many of you know a VHS tape to the streaming digital that's happening. It happened in the same space. Look at the phone. Well, we had a cell phone that's so bulky. Now you have so much cell phone, and Apple is releasing every year on something, So every child is born with an iPad nowadays. So, the evolution of technology and applying is so much. And that gives an opportunity and challenges. So the space of technology growth is very interesting. So not that because I'm a technologist, I'm saying this, but I do know without technology now, no business can operate. I know when I say this statement as a technology, they hate me because I'm biased, but I'm telling you, applying technology to fintech and any other segment, it's serious opportunity.
From my perspective, there are really two different kinds of answer to that question. The role of technology in being a good practicing lawyer has really changed a lot, because there are a lot of ways that technology can help you with client service. Clients really want a good answer, low cost, as efficiently as possible. And there's some very interesting tools that have developed that we use regularly for our clients. For example, certain kinds of database searching, certain kinds of form matching, certain kinds of legal tech that can really cut down on some of the time-consuming activities that clients used to have to pay for to be done by people. But I think for a more senior lawyer or people who are starting their legal careers, the thing that's been most interesting is the development of so many new products and business lines. And from a legal perspective, that's fabulous because you can really use your legal skills in a new way. And from an experienced lawyer's perspective, it's fascinating too, because so many aspects of new technology, new products, fintech, crypto, new payment products, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, really have legal analogies to so many products that we've been working on in the past: derivatives, structured finance, other kinds of corporate transactions. And so for a seasoned lawyer, it's a great opportunity to take the practice experience from traditional finance, traditional financial institution and bank work, and apply it in a new way. And it's very exciting. And I think that the clients and other deal participants and others really benefit from having a grounded perspective. It's not really novel technology, but the objectives and the deals are not that new when you get down to what they're trying to accomplish.
That's really interesting perspective from you all. And it seems like technology is pervasive and a lot of the times a means of becoming more efficient, or it's also client-led. But as someone who may be trying to break into the industry or learn more about it with so many buzzwords flying around these days, what are some of the key concepts that we should really be paying attention to in your view? Ram, maybe we can start with you on this one.
So let me take that. Meaning, my advice is just don't run after a shiny object. Don't. Because as you said, buzzword or a hype cycle, all the technology that comes, that goes through an evolution, right? So everything has a certain place. But certain technology become what I call it as a general purpose technology, which means it's going to be applied everywhere. That's a very important, that's going to sustain. For example, internet is a general purpose, right? When the internet came, everybody was afraid. Oh my God, every corporation blocked it. Oh my, you're gonna go in and check something, this and that. They actually blocked it. And now I know, I only use the word ChatGPT. Every corporation is also trying to block it because they think the data is going to get lost. So where any new technology comes, there's going to, it goes through a certain cycle. But the advice that I'm saying is everything has its place. Okay. So I don't want people to think I got to be an AI guy right now because AI is the hype and I don't think I should be doing anything else. No, that's not the case. The technology space has a lot of different job roles. It has product manager to a compliance person to reg person to an engineer to a testing, all kinds of things exist, and it needs people in every aspect. So don't get disturbed by the hype, because when there is a hype, there is a crowd. There's so many people behind it. You got to be ready for it. So you got to figure it out. Where is this, your interest? What do you want to do? And there will be always a need. I'll just give you an example. People say the legacy application of mainframe is gone and your engineer should come out and become a Python programmer. I mean, let's forget it. Mainframe, IBM is still surviving, and there's a lot of demand there too. I'm not asking you to go and do a mainframe right now. I'm just saying, okay, there is a space. Some become niche, some become popular, some become what I call a general purpose technology. Internet is one. Those days, electricity is one. Now, AI is going to be that too. So my recommendation is take a break, find your passion, find exactly what you want to do, and then go after it. There is an opportunity for it.
I can jump in. I mean, from my perspective, a couple of points. I think there are a lot of interesting publications like CoinDesk, other daily publications that it's worth reading every day. A lot, something that's great about emerging technologies like blockchain and fintech is that there are new developments every single day. And so however far behind maybe you think you are, you're not that far behind. So if you read the news that's going on in real time, you start to get a handle on it. I think I spend most of my time on blockchain technology and crypto. I think learning about potential uses of blockchain technology, even away from cryptocurrency, is a fascinating thing to focus on. I think in thinking about cryptocurrency, there are lots of things that get notoriety, like, is something a security? What about NFTs, non-fungible tokens, which we can certainly talk about, but some of the most interesting uses of crypto have to do with use of stable coins as a method of payment. And there have been some really good developments about that in the last couple of weeks. Happy to talk about that in more detail. But I think that that's an area that is discrete and easy to be focused on and changing in real time. And to me, blockchain technology and payment stablecoins are just two fascinating things to get familiar with.
And I'll just chime in quickly. I agree with both Ram and Alexandra. I think there are a lot of buzzwords. FinTech is constantly evolving. You've got to, there's nothing that you can singularly pay attention to. You should have a broad awareness of it all. Some of it will be applicable to the industry that you're in. Some of it won't. Some of it, like AI, there's a keen interest, but from a financial services perspective, we're still trying to figure it out. We're still trying to figure out where it fits in the ecosystem. But you do see some relevant applications for it. So it's just evolving. I think the advice of reading the publications on a daily basis, understanding what that emerging technology is, and then seeing how it might be applicable to the industry that you're in is very relevant. And I think in some ways, almost a lot of it can be applicable. It may not be of interest, like cryptocurrency. Some institutions, but it all can be applicable in some form or fashion.
Thanks everyone for that. So plenty to learn and to keep up with. Alexandra, maybe going back to some of the comments that you made, can we start with you and talk about some of the trends that you're seeing in areas like blockchain and crypto, and maybe we can open it up to AI and machine learning as examples as well?
Sure. Absolutely. In the blockchain and crypto world, from my perspective, we represent, in addition to representing clients on the litigation and bankruptcy side, we represent a lot of, really two kinds: startup clients who are trying to develop and build a product using blockchain or cryptocurrency, also uses and applications of smart contracts. And that's a great opportunity to learn, even if you don't have a developer background or a coding background, to think about how people with a true tech background think about innovating in the industry. And we work with all of those clients on legal formation and legal and regulatory issues on how to build and develop their product. Some of the interesting parts about that are, you may know that there's a lot of regulatory uncertainty in the United States surrounding blockchain and cryptocurrency. But almost more importantly, there is not a uniformity of regulation across the international community. And that's important to consider, because a functioning blockchain or a functioning cryptocurrency ecosystem will have users from many different jurisdictions. And one of the obstacles, but also opportunities, is figuring out a way for a product like that to function across jurisdictions. Because, as you know, the legal system and the political system are made for individual countries, but part of the goal of some of blockchain and crypto is it can be international, it can serve people who have been traditionally underserved by the banking system, and it can move very, very fast. And so we're in some ways working for the law to catch up with the technology, which is a real opportunity for legal and regulatory experts as they, work to influence regulation, to be adopted.
Ram or Dixie, anything to add there?
Yeah. So, meaning this will be interesting, coming from a technologist. I always recommend, don't have a solution and look for a problem. Don't just take one technology and try to go apply everywhere. No. That's not how it should be done. That's not a long-term success. So you have to look at the problem space first. There is a breadth or a list of technology that are available for you. We spoke a lot about it right now. It could be blockchain. It could be AI. It could be anything. Okay, you got it. All right, now look at the problem. What is the business problem? And mostly in the case, it'll be either a cost too high, it is completely inefficient, the experience is very poor, because when you have these attributes, they're all meant to be disruptive, right? I come from a bank, and whenever I sit in a panel, usually the left side and the right side of the folks sitting there will always want to disrupt me because they think, the banking system could be inefficient. The banking system is too expensive. The banking things are not how it should be. So my way I'm putting this is, you look at the space, it is not really good. Find a right way of innovating in that space, and you'll get something, right? It's like you have a physical currency, now it's digital currency. That's an innovation in how you handle the physical currency. But, the credit card too, the instant payment, there's a lot of things happen. If you want to move money in the United States, it takes a couple of days. But the entire world is an instant payment. It's not picking up here yet, but it'll come there. But these are all the spaces that's not quite happening, right? Then you apply the right technology. So don't take your hammer. Everything will look like a nail. Look at the problem space, solve it. You will be a successful disruptor.
I'll just talk about AI for a second. I mean, it is really one of the areas that I'm uniquely interested in at the moment. Really coming from an operational background, what it can do to increase operational efficiency in the back office for a lot of the manual processes that we're doing. And there seems to be a lot of application for that, for AI in particular. From things like monitoring transactions from a fraud perspective and having that AI solution kind of monitor those transactions for you. We put a lot of bodies behind doing that today, doing the investigative work behind it. Transaction volume is ever increasing. So how can I use something like AI to continue to monitor that ever-increasing bulk of transactions, provide the right investigative tools around it so that I can really have the manpower to support the more detailed research that needs to be conducted. So it is something that I think will grow even more in the space. I think people haven't quite figured out all the applications that they can put around AI. But I really think that is an area to keep an eye on, both from a back office, I'll say, perspective, from operational efficiency, as well as a customer experience perspective.
Thanks, everyone. That was great color. I'm kind of curious, what do you think the fintech industry will look like in another few years? I think each one of you has a really interesting perspective, and I'm curious to, start off there. If anyone would like to chime in first, please go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think fintech can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. So let's just start there. I think again, coming back to financial services, one of the struggles that we've had in the fintech realm is that there's really no regulatory environment around it, right? It's an unregulated kind of industry, and the regulations have really come through the banks. The onus is on the bank in the oversight. The onus is on the bank to ensure that whatever partnerships they have with those fintechs are adhering to the bank's policies, procedures, guidance. I think that fintechs are starting to understand that their obligation is a little broader than just presenting a product set or a great marketing tool or a great customer experience. They have to have a broader understanding. And I think this goes back to what Ram was saying earlier, that there are so many areas of fintech that you can be a part of, from compliance through development. I think you're going to see an evolution of fintech to be more in line in understanding their obligations as an entity versus kind of pawning that off to their partner relationships.
I agree with Dixie. I also feel, though, that we're seeing more development of things like banking as a service partnerships, where traditional financial services companies are partnering with fintechs, and rather than thinking of it as like a disruption, really thinking of it more as an evolution in how to deal with customers, how to develop banking products, how to develop financial services. And so I believe that a couple of years from now, it won't be as much there's the crypto world and the traditional finance world, or there's the fintech world and the traditional finance world. I think it'll be more of a melding together, which probably will be better for traditional finance and also for the customer experience.
So let me answer this question, because everybody will have, hey, what's going to happen in this industry? And now your question is fintech. You can apply this to any industry. And we all look for certain measurement or a leading indicator of what that is happening, right? That's the way of systematically looking at it. One of the key things that you should look whether in fintech is, where are the people investing money for the next 3 years? Meaning there's a lots of data out there in Google. You can look at it. These are the venture funds and private equity and everything investing, so that they believe that's what they want to invest and they want to take it. So that's one indicator, because when all the investment is going to happen in AI and large language model, there's going to be something in that space, right? Because that's something you want to observe. Because if you look at another space where nobody's investing, that's going to be a very small amount of change that's going to happen in that. So one such thing is to look at it. Certainly right now, the AI space is on the top. Everybody wants to apply to it. And there's other spaces like that we see. It's like the payment area, the insurance area, the RegTech, and the neobank like this. And the way we try to gauge this is every year, every quarter, there is an investment number comes out. And you can have a leading indicator of where the puck is going. That's how it happens in any industry. If you want to do in a health tech or anything, it'll be the same thing. But in fintech, that's the same. That's happening. Right now, the whole rush is on AI. And you've got to be really careful, because there is a hype that everybody is jumping on it. And there's a real, right? But it's going to happen, and it needs to get cleansed. And that's how we see it could happen in the fintech space.
That was really insightful. Thank you, everyone. I would also just like to take a moment to remind our audience that you can feel free to enter any questions in the Q&A box. We actually do have an audience Q&A. So how can we ethically harness the potential of AI and technology to solve pressing challenges in fintech or any other industry? And maybe adding on sort of a question of my own, where do you see opportunities for fintech to really level the playing field? It's a tough question, but
I can answer the first part on the AI side. Listen, there is a traditional AI, which is what people used to do on a mathematical aspect. People are doing it, creating models and applying it. They could do different output of it. I want to be efficient. I want to predict something. I want to do fraud. All kinds of things are there. And then the new space now came, which is the large language model. And people are trying to figure out, how can I take something out there and fine tune it? Now, this is a very not so mature space. There's a lot of things happening. Unless you have a lot of background in it and you want to get in, that's a good thing. Or you want it to be a beginner, that's a good thing. But there's a lot of action is going to happen in this space, and there's a lot more opportunities, and people are going to apply, especially for the productivity and everything. So it's going to happen in every space. So it's good to watch. And this is what I call it, a general purpose technology. AI is going to be there on everything. So that's going to happen. So that's the first part. I think I forgot the second part. Maybe somebody else can take the
yeah, certainly. Is there an opportunity for fintech to level the playing field?
That's a meaning. Listen, we are trying to level with what? Meaning, there is no other baseline, right? Because fintech is going to grow. Everybody wants to grow. Every bank wants to grow. Every insurance wants to grow. They want to offer the best experience. They want to have their business grow. So they're going to apply everything possible. And there's hundreds of other people who are going to come and disrupt you, and everybody else is going to defend it. So this is a cycle. You can't have a baseline to say this is enough. I reached my goal line. There's no goal line. It's a constant evolution, constant uptick is going to happen. So
I think it depends what playing field we're talking about. I think there's an opportunity for fintech to allow people who maybe haven't had as much participation in the financial system to be able to participate. I think it'll allow people to participate at lower costs in a more efficient way, hopefully, extending the world to, to the underbanked, the unbanked. So I think if you're a person who's interested in a financial services experience, there is an opportunity to level the playing field. I think if you're a professional new to the fintech world, I do think all of these new technologies and pending regulations are an opportunity to get involved, because things are changing so quickly that nobody is that far ahead of you. And so if you start today and you learn what's going on today, you're up to speed pretty quickly, because something's going to change next week and you're going to know what happened next week and you're going to know how it was different from this week. And so in those two ways, I do think this rapid evolution of technology is sort of on the side of young people and, ambitious people and people throughout the world who maybe haven't been served by traditional financial services.
And I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think if you look at where people stand today, fintech has already kind of leveled the playing field from a customer experience. You have access to robo-advisors, investment tools that the average, individual would never have had access to 20, 30 years ago without stepping into a Schwab or some other large investment company with a, $30,000, $40,000 deposit or larger. So I think it's already done a lot to level the playing field. The ability to, open an account on your mobile phone, that wasn't available, 10, 15 years ago. So you've seen this rapid evolution that has made financial services accessible, and all of that has been primarily driven by fintech companies.
That was really helpful. I know Alexandra and Dixie, you've both touched a little bit on regulation and how that's also rapidly evolving right now. So could either of you, and Ram as well, touch on the evolution of regulation that you've seen in the space? Maybe Alexandra, we can start with you.
Sure, it's a huge question. It's probably its own panel, or maybe its own whole day. But from a U.S. perspective, I think it's important to think about. There's federal regulation that is trying to catch up with some of these developing technologies. There's also state regulation that's trying to catch up with these. I think the regulator so far that's doing the best job is FinCEN, Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, and how they think about, and Dixie, you probably want to jump in on this, how they think about Bank Secrecy Act and financial institution compliance. I think at the state level, the state banking regulators are doing their best in terms of the money transmitter licensing regime and expanding regulation for new products to facilitate a regulatory system that works. I think the banking regulators are really way ahead of the securities, commodities, derivatives, and tax regulators as these products are evolving. The thing that I could go on about, but I'm not going to, but that's fascinating, is when you break down a lot of these products from a legal perspective, it's not always apparent what regulatory regime should govern them. And that's why some of the regulators are having kind of territorial disputes about who should get to regulate what. But the pure payments products where people agree that it's a federal and or state banking issue, I think New York DFS is way ahead on fintech and also on crypto, and FinCEN as well. But Dixie, maybe you want to chime in from a bank regulator perspective, because I think that's probably the easiest to capture. If we start down the SEC, CFTC road, I will have to do the next panel as well.
I think the regulatory environment is evolving. I would say I felt like there's been a lot of catch up that has happened from a regulator perspective. FinTech kind of accelerated so quickly. The regulations didn't quite keep up with what fintech was evolving to, and the extent of the access that it had to the consumer base, and the partnerships that the banks started engaging with those fintechs to extend their product sets. You've really just seen this interagency guidance around these what they'll call third-party relationships in really in the last few months. We have this SR 2304 that replaced a prior guidance, and the prior guidance were around third-party risk management was really around vendor relationships. That was how they were viewing fintech companies, when in essence, you can't just view them as a vendor relationships because they're partnerships. They're an extension of your product set. I think regulators are still working through what this new way of providing financial services actually means, and what it means from a regulatory perspective. For now, the onus is on the banks completely to oversee everything that the fintechs do on their behalf. I think at some point there has to be an extension from a regulatory perspective to those financial technology companies as well. And we're not there yet, and they're not ready to do that yet. So I think you'll continue to see an evolution in that regard.
I also see a question on the chat that posted for an young adult aspiring to get into this opportunity, what they should do. So let me kind of try that. See, when you talk about fintech, there are different branches of it, right? It could be banking, it could be insurance, it could be any of the other thing. And each one across the globe is regulated by different entities. So I always joke around with my staff that everyone under the sun regulates us. So it's so complex because there's so many of the things. So, so you pick your vertical. What do you want to be? You want to be in the bank, there's a regulator for that. You want to be in a wealth, there's a regulator for that. And pick one or two and say, I want to specialize in this. I want to specialize in anti-money laundering, something like that. And then try to become in the fintech. What do you want to be there? Do you want to be an analyst? Do you want to be a technologist? Do you want to be like an operations person? You figure all these things out, because there's two equations. There's a vertical of which industry, what regulation, and you want to start somewhere because you're an young person just starting. You don't want to boil the whole thing because it'll be too complicated. Start somewhere in that piece and then grow into other part. Then you'll be a holistic reg. There's a lot of opportunity in reg because I always think reg is always backwards because of its design, right? Because a new technology comes, they need to first study how it's being used, good, bad, ugly. Then they got to actually go in and do it. They're not coming up with the regulation first and then the technology comes. No, it actually works the other way. So there's always this catch-up piece that's happening. So there will be an opportunity. So my recommendation is pick a vertical, pick a regulation, find some tools, learn yourself, and then be into it. To be something you're starting, that'll be a good start.
I like that a lot. So we won't be boiling the ocean. I guess with a little less than 5 minutes left in our conversation, are there any sort of key resources, tools, skills, or bits of advice that you can offer anyone trying to enter the fintech space or maybe pivot within it?
I would say, anyone starting something, follow your passion and have an empathy to the client, what you're doing. Everything else will follow. And learning wise, nowadays, there's so much resources out there on connected learning. And I think it depends on individual. Some people wants to go sit in a class of a lecture of 3 weeks and wants to learn. That's their style. But I'll tell you, the connected learning of what you can learn from outside that's available is plenty. So it's more about selecting where your passion is and then, applying to your background. There's so many job roles in this. It's not like one. Some people like to be an engineer. Some people like to be a product person. So everything has its space. You have to pick the right one that you feel so passionate about what you want to do. And I think there's an opportunity there.
And I would agree with that. I think that you have to understand, again, we've all said it, fintech is so broad, it can mean a million different things. You need to find out what your interest is in, and then go wholeheartedly in understanding any newsletters or trending analysis that comes out there, just researching that. But again, it can be, your skill set can be anywhere from a true coder developer skill set to a sales skill set. All those skill sets are needed in fintech. There is not one distinct skill set that's needed. Quite honestly, a college degree is absolutely not needed. So the field is wide open. Follow your skills, follow your interest, and I'm sure that you will find the space that you can pursue in the future.
I agree with that. I would say also, talk to as many people as you can, because it's very hard to know what you don't know. But one of the ways to figure it out is if you talk to a lot of people, you can figure out, well, there are people who are thinking about something similar to what I have in mind, or some people have tried something and it has worked or it hasn't worked. And there's a lot of experiential learning out there to be found, in addition to learning some of the business or legal or technological framework issues as you think about how to develop going forward.
Great. I think that's a wonderful place to leave off on our conversation. So thank you so much to Alexandra, Dixie, and Ram for supporting this year's conference and guiding us through the trends and innovations in fintech. It was really a pleasure to speak with you, and thanks for your time.